Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Here we are on MFSN. It is time for another one of our preview NFL shows. We are 1 week away from the NFL actually beginning. I am here with Casey Scheinvold, Vlad to the Bone. That's his baseball name, but it's stuck. And Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk football with you, cowboy.
Let's do it. And we're going to talk about the Cowboys also, but not yet. First, we're going to talk about what to expect from MFSN this season. Now, first of all, we do have our waiver wire show. We have it in every major sport that we do. We have it. Our waiver wire show is going to be on Mondays at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern every week. So come get your information about who to pick up. You're going to need to know these players. You cannot win a league if you're not paying attention to the wire at all. I don't care how good you are, unless you're in like an 8-team league. You're not going to win without the waiver wire. Okay, guys, let's get into talking about what's going on in the news. What's happened in this past week that we need to update the viewers on? Ross, I'm going to start with you. Give us some information that the fans can take with them.
Well, I mean, we talked about it a little this week, but the biggest news was Cam Newton being cut by the New England Patriots, and the Patriots going with the rookie Jones as their starting quarterback for the year, which I think is a good move on Belichick's part. I think it's an interesting move. I think I don't know why he just wanted to keep Cam as his backup, but I guess he just wanted to get rid of him for some reason. But I think that's the biggest news of the week so far. There's some minor stories we can talk about. Saquon Barkley, who's the New York Giants running back, came out today and they said that he's going to probably start the season on week 1, which is great news. I'm sure Casey's very happy about that. That's unbelievable news. But there's a lot of cuts happened on Tuesday. There's a lot of some players even retired on Tuesday because they just don't want to play anymore for personal reasons. Probably because of COVID, probably because what's going on, and maybe their health isn't that great. But Tuesday was a big cut day, and I don't know if you guys saw who was cut and who retired, but I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Casey, let's start with you on that. What you weigh in?
Well, obviously, Cam Newton is the biggest name that was cut. The debate now is where he'll end up. The Cowboys just recently came out and said they're not interested because that was considered one of the logical landing spots for him. I still think a place like Houston could take a chance on him. Ross disagrees because he doesn't think Cam wants to play for a team like Houston.
I don't think anybody in the right mind will want to play in Houston, but that's Ross the Boss.
I just think Cam Newton thinks of himself as a starting quarterback, so why would he take a backup job somewhere else, even if it's a superior team?
But let me ask you a question, Case, real quick.
Sure.
The season starts next week. Let's say he signs with Houston today. But I don't think it's happening today, but let's just say. I mean, he has 10 days to learn a playbook. Is that enough time for a starting quarterback to learn a new playbook? I don't think so.
I don't think it's enough time for him to learn a new playbook, but he certainly has a better chance to play by week 2 or 3 there than he would anywhere else. Because if he goes to Dallas, he has to learn the playbook. It doesn't matter where he goes, but you look at the competition and the depth of quarterbacks at different positions with Deshaun Watson, kind of a ghost and not really nobody really has an answer of when he's coming back. Cam Newton has the best chance to play there. I can't even think off the top of my head who the starting quarterback in Houston is right now. There was some talk of Tyrod Taylor, but I hear it's not him. So I don't know why he wouldn't go where he could start. There weren't, to me, fantasy football, there weren't very many other relevant cuts to the roster. I think when you're talking from a fantasy perspective in the news, what's the most relevant right now? Obviously, you mentioned Saquon Barkley, a borderline first round, second round pick in fantasy, is going to be on track for week 1. They just activated Carson Wentz in Indianapolis to be the starting quarterback again, and they say he'll be ready for week 1. That's obviously a big boost for his value as well as some of the other weapons on that team. CeeDee Lamb just came off the COVID-19 injured list, so he'll be available to play starting the season. So there are some things happening in the news. As far as cuts go, the only one I kind of saw as relevant was Cam Newton.
Well, let me bring up one other thing, and this shows you how fast fantasy football moves. You guys didn't even bring up what is actually the biggest news of the last 7 days, which is that J.K. Dobbins went down for the entire year.
We were getting there.
We talked about him on Tuesday.
Fine. Okay. You stole my thunder.
I mean, as we talk, Dr. Dan, let me just tell you something. I think that helped Lamar Jackson tremendously. he's going to be leading that team in rushing and, of course, passing. But I mean, Todd Gurley went over there to try to make the team, and they said no thanks. It's going to be interesting where Gus Edwards appears now. I mean, he's now the first string running back.
Right. So where does he go in drafts?
I mean, a lot of drafts are happening this weekend. So I would say mid fourth, late fourth, mid fifth. I mean,
it depends on your league settings, but look, he is a legitimate running back too now.
On an offense that runs the ball predominantly. I mean, let's be honest, the Baltimore Ravens have always been built as a big offensive line, ground and pound sort of team. And Gus Edwards is called Gus the Bus for a reason. So as long as it's not a PPR league, I think he's got a lot of value. In a PPR league, I don't think he catches the ball at all in their offense. So that would limit him there.
It does. But I mean, Gus the Bus is not far off from J.K. Dobbins.
I would put him in the late third round, probably.
Late third round. So you're moving him up.
Well,
I'm just concerned that I think Baltimore might go out and sign another running back. We'll see what happens. Listen, there's a few guys out there that are free agents that could come in and easily take that job away from Gus the Bus. But we'll see what happens. I don't know.
I actually don't think there's anyone out there that would come in there and take the job away from Gus Edwards. What they could do is come and take the job away from the backups. And who are the two backups? I actually have them both in our Dynasty League. I know Justice Hill is one of them, but Tywan Williams, I think is his name.
Yes.
Tywan Williams.
He jumped into second place. He's the guy who could have real standalone value if the Ravens don't sign anyone. And so far, he's been doing very well in camp. So I like having him on my team. In fantasy football, you always got to worry about being sniped in a role like that. Maybe they bring in somebody like Todd Gurley or, Royce Freeman just came free. Maybe they bring him in. You just don't know what's going to happen behind him. But Gus, I think, is set at that position.
And the crazy thing about Baltimore, I mean, I bet them in Vegas. I was in Vegas last weekend. They won 20 preseason games in a row, 20 in a row preseason.
And they care about it.
And people it's like the easiest bet ever in Vegas. It's like for sure money. The spread was only 4 points. I was giving 4 points. They were playing Washington. It was like the easiest money I ever made. That in Illinois, I bet too. Unbelievable. Easy bets last week. Unbelievable.
What do you guys make of Tony Romo's recent comments about Zach Wilson in New York with the Jets? According to Tony Romo, he said within 2 or 3 years, he'll be in the upper echelon of starting quarterbacks, comparing him to a young Patrick Mahomes.
I think he's smoking too much funny cigarettes. I don't know why a person would want to compare a rookie quarterback to probably the best quarterback in the game. It's too much pressure, especially in New York, playing for the Jets. I mean, the Jets. I mean, their skill set at their skill set positions are not very good, and we know that. I mean, it's not a good position to say those kind of quotes. Being the season, the expectation is going to be huge now. The New York press is going to eat that quote up. I feel bad for this kid. I wish that he was playing in a smaller market. I like him. I feel that he's a very good quarterback, but just playing in New York, there's so much pressure on you.
All right, I'm gonna voice a different opinion about this. First of all, I trust Tony Romo a lot. I've come to see that what this guy has to say is gold. So if Tony Romo is putting his stamp on this guy, I'm buying. And meanwhile, he's been playing well across the board. It seems to me that he's got what it takes to be a legitimate, very, very good cornerstone cornerback. Is he ever going to be Patrick Mahomes? I would be completely shocked about that because who is? But is Zach Wilson going to be as good as, say, Baker Mayfield? I think he is. I think he's going to be about at that level. That's really good. And meanwhile, don't discount the Jets' skill players. When a quarterback starts playing well, the team is a whole different team. I think the same thing is true with Mac Jones coming in New England. I feel much better about that team with somebody at the helm who's actually going to make things work. Casey, what do you think about that?
I tend to trust Tony Romo as well, so I'll side with you on that one. And I mean, Corey Davis and Elijah Moore are not going to be the two names that scare opposing defenses or make fantasy managers run to set their lineups, but they're two very quality wide receivers. You put Jamison Crowder in the slot, and that's a pretty reliable Wes Welker type of slot guy. Tyler Kroft, I think, is their starting tight end. That's not a bad one. Their offensive line is pretty good. They have that Mekhi Becton, what was his, I think the rookie from last year who turned out to be a really good left tackle. I mean, their issue is whether Michael Carter can lead a running back crew.
I like Michael Carter. He's the rookie from North Carolina. He was averaging 8 yards a carry last season in college football. Which
Yeah,
really
the ACC is a little different than the.
But I like Ty Johnson.
East.
I think Ty Johnson could be the starting running back, and he's like, I think it's like 1% owned in fantasy football leagues. I picked him up just because I feel he's going to be the starting running back. I like Ty Johnson. I think he's going to be the leading back in New York, but I could be wrong. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm actually gonna jump on that bandwagon kind of, because what I'm gonna say is I think he is gonna be the leading back in the first half of the season. But you're gonna have to watch out. If you're a Ty Johnson owner and he's doing really well, I would trade high around week 6.
Oh
or
yeah,
7.
I'm going to trade him into Dr. Dan Ratner's team in a second. Don't worry.
Oh, you're not trading into my team. All right, guys. Ross, you just were in Vegas. You talked about these prop bets that you made. And I'm just curious because, listen, the people who are watching out there may not know this about Ross the Boss, but this guy really does know his picks. I'm not just saying that. He says that I'm the greatest at all kinds of things, and I am at some, but not all of them. Ross is one of the best pickers I've ever seen, not just his nose. All right, Ross, bring it out.
I'll bring it out. So I got my bets right here.
Yep.
And here's the prop bets right here. And it's really in small writing, so I'm gonna have to like.
Wait, you got to talk into the mic, Ross. You're going wild with your picks.
Can you hear me? Is it better over here?
Well, now we can't see.
Hold on, let me.
Don't forget your viewing audience. Don't turn your back on them like that.
It's the first rule.
Now he's muting. I'll tell you what, Ross, we're going to come back to you on this. We'll get back to you on the prop bets as soon as you've got things in order. Casey, let's talk instead. We can hear you, but let's talk in. All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but the mic fell and now the sound's coming out of there. So the first bet is this: to win the Super Bowl. This is to win the championship Super Bowl game at the end of the year. The Chiefs are 5-1. The Packers are 17-2. The Bills are 10-1. The Buccaneers are 10-1 to repeat. The Seahawks are 12-1. The Ravens are 12-1. The Steelers are 15-1. The Browns are 20-1. The Giants, I know Casey's a Giant fan, 75-1. And my Bengals are, what are we? Bengals are, the Bengals are 75-1 also. So out of those things I told you, who do you guys like to win the Super Bowl next year?
Well, wait, there's two different questions. There's who do we like to win the Super Bowl and what do we think is a good bet?
And who has the best implied odds?
So out
Exactly.
of these odds I gave you, what teams, I bet actually 2 teams. What teams do you like for the odds?
Okay, well, the team that I think is going to win the Super Bowl does not bring me any pleasure whatsoever as a Browns fan. I think the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to
Wow.
win it.
They're 15-1. Okay.
I think it's a great bet. Betting on the Ravens at 15-1 is probably the best bet out there. Ironically, one of the better bets out there is the Browns at 20-1. I know it sounds crazy, but they have a very complete team this year, and they have a great coach for the first time since Marty Schottenheimer. Do I think it's going to happen? Of course not. I'm not an idiot. That's why I'm picking the Ravens. I mean, of all things, as a Browns fan, we always go in picking the last thing we would want.
Casey, out of those odds I gave you, who do you think I bet?
I think you bet the Browns.
No, I took the Ravens. It's actually 15-1. It went up in odds. And I also bet the Bills at 11-1. I think the Bills just missed it last year. I love their team. I like their defense. I think they're well-rounded. I feel that's a great bet. I don't like taking the Chiefs at 5-1.
I don't like that at all. The Chiefs' defense is suspect. The Browns should have beaten them last year. They had them beat. There was a bad call, and I'm not saying that just as sour grapes. I actually think the Chiefs' defense is not up to snuff. Sorry.
Okay, and I'll just say this. I took the Bengals to go over 5.5 wins this season. So I took that bet. I took the over on that just because I'm a Bengal fan. And then let's go to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Are you ready? Trevor
Yes.
Lawrence, 11-5.
Oof.
Justin Fields, 13-2. Mac Jones, I'm sure this one up now, 13-2. Zach Wilson 13-2. Trey Lance 7-1. Kyle Pitts 10-1. Jamir Chase 12-1. Devontae Smith 15-1. Najee Harris 20-1. And then you got a whole bunch of other ones behind that. So who do you guys like to be Rookie of the Year?
Who
Casey,
do I
you go
like
first.
to be Rookie of the Year? I think
What's the best bet?
the best bet is Najee Harris at 20-1.
Yeah,
I just think
that's great.
he's going to be a workhorse back right out of the gate. If Pittsburgh makes it to the playoffs, it's going to be because of their running game. It's not going to be because of Ben Roethlisberger. So I think he's probably the best bet given the odds. I mean, he could easily have between 13 and 1,500 yards rushing and more than a dozen touchdowns. So who do I think? It may be a quarterback. I mean, if Zach Wilson does as well as people think he does, as Tony Romo thinks he can be, if he turns the Jets into an 8-8 team or an 8-9 team or a 9-8 team, because there's 17 games now, I think that might be enough to make him the offensive Rookie of the Year.
I agree with Casey's assessment entirely, and it sounds like, Ross, you did bet on Najee Harris.
I did bet.
There's
Najee
no
Harris.
reason. There's no reason to not go with a great rookie running back in a good running situation as your likely candidate for Rookie of the Year. Running backs, and look, we know this from fantasy football. You can take a rookie running back in round 1, and it is not insane at all. It just depends on the circumstances and how talented they are. You don't even need to see a running back run a single play in the NFL without saying, I think they're a round 1 pick in the case of somebody like Najee Harris. There's some other guys who
are going to have over 1,200 yards and have over 12 touchdowns in the season, and that will propel him to be the rookie
Now,
of the year.
Is he going to catch a lot of passes? Because we've got people watching who are PPR fans.
That's something people don't know about him. In Alabama, he did catch passes, and in practice, he would catch with one hand like all the time. That was his signature. You know, it would drive Saban crazy when they did that stuff. But he has unbelievable hands, and he'll have 60 receptions at least coming out of that backfield.
And it's not like it's uncommon for a running back to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Barkley did it in 18, Kamara in 17, Gurley in 15, even going back to 13. Eddie Lacy won Offensive Rookie of the Year as a running back. So in the last 8 years, 4 of the winners have been running backs. So it's not like the voters shy away from them.
I really put my chips on one quarterback this year to win a few awards. So passing yards leader. Instead of me going through all the odds, tell me who you guys think will lead the league in passing yards league. I'll tell you the odds.
Well, I think Patrick Mahomes will probably lead the league. Are we talking about rookies?
He's 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Patrick Mahomes bet, but at the same time, I think he will lead the league in passing.
I think if Dak Prescott stays healthy, he could be up there too. I also think it's a dark horse would be Matthew Stafford in LA. I just think he has a set of weapons he's never had before, and this is a big armed quarterback. He could throw for a lot.
So Mahomes is 5-1. Aaron Rodgers is 8-1. Stafford is 10-1. Dak is 5-1. Joe Burrow is 10-1. Ben Roethlisberger is 15-1. Tom Brady's 10-1. Matt Ryan's 51. The one I bet on is Justin Herbert, and he's 13-1.
Oh, I like that.
That's a sneaky bet.
That's a sneaky. Baker Mayfield is 20-1. I don't think he'll lead the league in
I wouldn't take that even at 21.
And the good thing about Justin Herbert is Eckler is a pass catching running back. So even out of the backfield, he'll get some passing yards that way too. It's not like you have a Derrick Henry type who never catches the ball.
Well, Herbert has also shown a track record of throwing for lots of yards. Baker Mayfield, I think, is going to have his best year ever, but he's never shown that. And meanwhile, they're a run first team.
Sophomore season, I think, is going to help him a lot. I think he'll show a lot of skill this season. I mean, if you want to bet some crazy bets, you can bet Tua is 75-1.
Wow.
Lamar Jackson's 100-1. Andy Dalton's 200-1.
That's because Andy Dalton won't be a starting quarterback after week 3.
Daniel Jones, who's Casey's guy, is 125-1. So there are some long shots out there, but I like my 13-1 shot with Justin. We'll see what happens. But Mahomes and Rodgers, all those guys have a great shot at doing it. So let's talk rushing yards. I'll just mention some odds. Derrick Henry, he led the league last year. He's 7-2. Delvin Cook is 6-1. Barkley's 8-1. McCaffrey's 10-1. Chubb is 12-1. Aaron Jones is 12-1. Elliott's 20-1. Kamara is 20-1. And then Jonathan Taylor's 10-1. Austin Eckler is 50-1. Antonio Gibson's 40-1. Who do you guys like out of all these picks?
Well, before we even say it, let me just say one thing, because we're primarily talking about fantasy sports a lot of the time, but this crosses over. When you're talking about the odds of which running back is going to run for most yards, we're assessing where should you take them in a draft. I love Nick Chubb's odds. I think they're pretty great, 13-1, and Chubb could easily lead the league in rushing. Do I think that's going to happen though? No, that just is the best bet based on the odds that you gave. That, or I really like Jonathan Taylor at 10-1 as well. Case, what about you?
I mean, obviously, I don't like the odds, but Derrick Henry, if he stays healthy, is the safest pick of the bunch. What were Damian Harris's odds? Just out of curiosity.
Damian Harris's odds are 75-1.
I was going to say it's
yeah, they're terrible, but that would probably be my flyer, just because it's a rookie quarterback. It's a run first offense. They traded Sony Michel, so I don't think he's going to lead the league. You know, I'm a gambler in terms of fantasy. I'm not one who's going to bet on prop bets typically, but if Dalvin Cook stays healthy, I think he could do it. If Nick Chubb stays healthy, obviously he could do it. I worry a little bit about them just trying to preserve Nick Chubb by using Kareem Hunt enough that it would damage his chance to win it all. But hey, who the heck knows?
What were Zeke's?
I took Elliott at 20-1.
See, that's a very good bet.
I took Elliott. I just feel that they'll feed him that ball as long as he's healthy, and I think the Dallas offensive line will do wonders this year. So see what happens. Now we'll go receiving yards leader. Stephon Diggs 12-1. DeAndre Hopkins 12-1. DK Metcalf 12-1. Tyreek Hill 12-1. Mike Evans 12-1. Michael Thomas, they didn't change the odds. He's 12-1, but you don't want to.
It's all 12-1.
Devontae Adams is 10-1. Calvin Ridley's 10-1. Keenan Allen is 15-1. Julio Jones is 15-1. And then you got Sammy Watkins is 300-1. And then I'll throw one more in there. Let's do Cooper Kupp is 50-1. So out of those names I mentioned, who do you guys like to win the receiving yards leader? Again, like you said, this is important also with like fantasy. I agree 100%. That's why I'm doing it.
I mean, look, especially based on the odds, it's basically a dart throw. You had 5 players who were all 12-1 and easily could do it. You had 2 players that are 10-1 that could easily do it, and there's basically no difference in the bet. So you just go with your gut.
So
I'd go with Tyreek Hill.
I took Tyreek Hill also.
I honestly would go. I mean, to piggyback on who Ross picked as the passing yards leader, I would go with Keenan Allen. I think if he stays healthy with Justin Herbert, he could have a huge year. I don't think Mike Williams is that much of a threat to as many of the yards. I know fantasy wise, he's a good number 2 or 3 receiver, but I think Keenan Allen, if he can avoid the back issues that plagued him in the past, is special. And in that offense, and with Justin Herbert, who loves to throw the ball vertical, as we've talked about, I think he could be your surprise at 20-1.
I like him too, and I feel that it is a crapshoot. I like Tyreek Hill just because he's playing in Kansas City and the home program. So there you go. Who's going to be the Pro Football AP MVP award? Patrick Mahomes 5-1. Aaron Rodgers 8-1. Josh Allen 10-1. Russell Wilson 13-1. Lamar Jackson 18-1. Tom Brady 10-1. Justin Herbert 20-1. Kyrie Murray 15-1. Matthew Stafford's 15-1. Delvin Cook is 65-1. That's I didn't even see that till now. Baker Mayfield is 20-1. Derrick Henry's 22-1. Let's go with Travis Kelce's 125-1. That's pretty good. Nick Chubb is 100-1. Barkley's 100-1. So out of those names, maybe I didn't mention them, but who do you guys like to win the MVP award in pro football this year?
Well, of the ones you named, I think my favorite odds were Lamar Jackson, especially with J.K. Dobbins being hurt. What was he, 18-1 or 15-1, something like that?
18-1, yep.
Yeah.
With Dobbins being hurt, it's even going to be more on Lamar Jackson. So if they're successful and they play well and win their division or clinch one of the top 2 seeds in the conference, I would say smart money's on Lamar Jackson. Man.
That's where I was going too. But then you said Nick Chubb was 100 to 1.
100 to 1.
That's not. I mean, I'll take those odds. My God. I mean, is it going to happen? Probably.
This
not.
from the man who passed up drafting him.
Well, let's remember why I did. Look, Nick Chubb was the 5th rated player I had on my team. The guy who I took was the 4th rated player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Travis Kelce.
But here's another one that I like. 125 to 1. Devontae Adams.
Oh my God, 125 to 1. I'll take that all day.
Remember,
Well,
he
that's because
had 14 games last year, 19 touchdowns, and he's definitely like him and Rodgers have something to prove this year because I don't think either will be on a team next year.
right.
Look,
So
I mean-
Rodgers wins the MVP if Devontae Adams does really well.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm not counting
It's
him out.
it's hard for a wide receiver to win the MVP. It just
I know.
is.
So I took Justin Herbert 20 to 1. I like those odds. And now, Dan, here's something you're like: defensive player of the year. Aaron Donald's 11 to 2. Myles Garrett 7 to 1. T.J. Watt is not JJ, but TJ, his brother, 10 to 1. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, both 12 to 1. Chase Young 12 to 1. Khalil Mack 25 to 1. Von Miller 50 to 1. I didn't even see that till now. J.J. Watt's 50 to 1. Bradley Chubb is 60 to 1. They have DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. He's 60 to 1. There's a lot of guys here, a lot of big odds. But who do you guys like to win the defensive player of the year?
This one that seems tougher to me, but Case, I'll jump in first. I'm not crazy about the odds because the payoff is not that good. I just have a gut feeling that TJ Watt is going to do that this year. The
10 to 1's
Steelers,
not bad. 10 to 1's
it's not bad. Yeah. But you could maybe do better with something with like Von Miller's odds, for example, but
Or Bradley Chubb. Keep it all in the Chubbs.
right,
yeah, keep going. That's
exactly.
why I mentioned it.
Actually, I agree with you that TJ Watt is likely one of the favorites, but I'm going to go with Chase Young in Washington. I think that cat is a different level of athlete. I've watched him as a Giants fan. I've watched him just decimate whoever's tried to block him. He's going up against, day in and day out. They're a great defense. They put them in a good position, and Chase Young is just an animal at getting to the quarterback. So Chase Young would be my
Ross,
first choice.
what were his odds? I don't think I heard that.
Chase Young is 12 to 1.
Okay. It's still a solid one. I like that pick.
I took Myles Garrett just because he works out at my gym during the off season. I see him all the time, and I just feel he's a step above anybody except Aaron Donald's great too. But I'm rooting for Myles Garrett. I know he plays for the Browns, but still.
Listen,
There's a little bit of a stigma attached to him.
What is it?
he asked what it is, Casey. Why don't you explain?
If for anybody who doesn't remember, he swung a helmet at Mason Rudolph in
I was at that game. I was at that game, and I was at the end zone where it happened. And I'm telling you, when it happened, my immediate thought, I'm just going to say this. I was like, I think Mason Rudolph said the N-word. That was initially what I thought. Who knows if it's true, but the fact is, Myles Garrett also is this great community guy. I think if there is a stigma, I understand it, but it was just a moment. It was a very, very wrong moment, a very dangerous
on
moment.
national TV.
Absolutely.
It was on national TV, but why would a player say the N-word when his offensive linemen are all African American? It doesn't make any. For me, it's like.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Stupid. I mean, is he that dumb?
Listen.
First of all, you don't say the word ever. It's like word that
it gets said. I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, but is he that stupid?
No, see, I don't think it's about stupidity. I think the same thing happened to Mason Rudolph that happened to Myles Garrett. They both snapped in a moment and went in a direction they go. Now, look, I don't know if Mason Rudolph actually said that. I want to be very careful about that. I'm not saying that he definitely did. But I do think it's very possible for any of these players to snap in the moment. I mean, how would any of us do in this kind of game? It is a brutal game.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. When they're playing football and they're on the line, they say a lot of bad things, Dan. They say a lot of nasty things about your mother. You say a lot of bad things about your wife.
I know,
It-
but you
it's a
never know
total
what's going to
mental
make
game
somebody
with these
snap.
people.
You never
And
know what's going to make
I
somebody snap.
just don't know if this quarterback would
Listen,
say that word, but
it
that's
doesn't-
me. I mean, if he did, I mean, I think he deserves to get the helmet thrown at him. That's my opinion.
but we, of course, we don't know. He denied
No.
that he did. I'm not saying that he did. I do think he said something that made made the guy snap. And I
Yeah.
will say this: the only reason that I didn't make that same pick is, as a Browns fan, I was like,
Don't jinx it.
I don't want, and I know I said maybe you go with Nick Chubb. I said Baker Mayfield's a great pick for best quarterback, or not MVP, not most yards. And the Browns are a good pick for Super Bowl. I'm saying this is true. I don't think any of that is going to happen. I'm a Browns fan. I'm realistic. The most realistic pick of any of these Browns picks coming through is Myles Garrett. That guy is a beast. What I wonder is about COVID. I watched him when he came back, and he was huffing and puffing for a long time for games. Even in the playoff game against the Chiefs, he was still breathing heavy.
And he
It
had
scared
COVID,
me.
right? He had COVID.
He had COVID, and he had
Remind me.
a really bad case of it.
And I don't know if you guys saw this. The Buccaneers are now 100% all vaccinated.
Yeah, they're the first team.
Well, let's also talk about that, because this is one of the central issues in the NFL right now. In fact, there's a lot of speculation that Cam Newton got cut because he was unvaccinated. And basically, I was reading an article that somebody wrote, I think it was Jay Busby. He was saying that, listen, you can criticize these people all you want for cutting people for not being vaccinated, but the fact is that is a risk to the team in terms of that player being available, not just from a COVID standpoint, but just their availability.
It is, and you're 100% right, because they have a whole different. If you're not vaccinated, your protocol's totally different than players that are vaccinated. And the NBA, I don't know if you guys, I know we're not talking NBA, but I just want to talk about it really quick. The NBA has a proposal out there. If you're not vaccinated, you have to get dressed the furthest away from the vaccinated players, like in Siberia, basically. And you sit. I mean, this is crazy. And you sit in a different section of the bus. It's like all of a sudden we're like Rosa Parks territory. I mean, it's like it's these things that they're doing for unvaccinated players in the NBA. It's going to be insane. And I know a lot of the players in the NBA compared to the NFL, a lot of them are not vaccinated, like a big percentage.
There is a big percentage. What I don't understand is how you keep them distanced in the
During the
less
game.
important things.
I'm not disagreeing with
during
you
the
guys.
game?
Let's really space the floor a lot.
I mean, Commissioner
The
Silver,
old
I think,
Dean
lost
Smith
his
four
mind.
corners.
I just don't understand. It's like all of a sudden, like when an unvaccinated player can't guard a vaccinated player, how are they going to do that?
Well, let me ask you this also. What my recollection of last football season is that there were more COVID cases in football than any other sport, and I'm not that surprised by it.
Baseball.
You think there was more in baseball?
If you remember that short season, the Marlins, like their entire team had to miss
Yeah,
like
kids.
20 some straight games. It felt
Yeah.
like they were playing a
there were some games. Maybe it's because baseball is drawn out longer.
St.
and-
Louis had it happen to them. I just
But the great thing is this, guys. I have CD Lamb. He was just activated for the COVID. He had COVID, so he's just activated. So I know CD Lamb has those antibodies for at least 2 or 3 months,
right.
and he's not going to get COVID. So
No, it's-
I'm in good position with him for playing the whole season now. Hopefully he behaves himself and does anything stupid. But these players that get COVID, like during the preseason and even in July, it's not a bad idea to like look at that and say, hey, that means they're not going to get COVID during the regular season. Yeah, that's what it means.
That-
So it could
likely.
be a good idea.
Yeah, not a bad thing to make. So this is a good lead in. We're going to finish up on this, guys. What are we thinking as fantasy sports players at this point in the season? We got a week left before the season starts. What are we going to be looking at? And by the way, I do want to say our picks, my picks, Casey's picks, Ross's picks, as they go against Yahoo every week are going to be coming out on Wednesdays so that you can get, and that's going to be at our website, www.mfsn.com. .tv, www.mfsn.tv.
And what we're going to do is we're going to look at each matchup and tell you what player, if you're not quite sure what player to start, we'll tell you what player to start compared to their matchup that week, because there's certain teams that have horrible pass defenses, and that's when you want to take advantage of that stuff, or have horrible run defenses, and that kind of stuff is going to help you win your league.
Yeah, let me just, I'm going to be heavy handed about that because matchups in football really do make a difference. However, don't get too cute. Play
That-
your best players
Of
almost all
course,
the time.
of course.
If you're choosing though between two back end guys, rely heavily on those matchups. So, all right, let's jump back to what are you guys looking at on your teams right now? You know, how are you playing this last week and thinking about it? Because the game has already begun. Most teams have drafted. I know the football games haven't begun, but the game within the game has started. Casey, what are you focusing on at this point in the season?
Well, at this point, I'm looking at obviously depth charts of all the NFL teams, so I know whether my players are going to be getting a majority of the touches or a bulk of the time on the field. I'm looking at the injuries. One thing Ross always pushes, and I'm a big supporter of, is I look at the offensive lines of a lot of these teams to determine whether running backs have a better chance to be successful. I look at defensive lines. Some people, Ross already talked about it. I look at the defensive rankings of the opponent in a lot of games. And so, sure, if I have Nick Chubb, since we've talked about him a bunch, if I have Nick Chubb, I'm playing Nick Chubb. I'm not going to sit him because he's going up against Aaron Donald and the Rams.
Running back one, you start every week. Let me clarify that.
And so
RB1, you start every week.
If I'm deciding between, say, I don't know, Zach Moss or
Mike Davis.
David Johnson, two lower end running back, two maybe flex at best players, I'm going to look at their matchup and see who they're playing against. Same with quarterbacks. I'm going to look at the opposing defense's pass rush, their secondary, the weapons that quarterback has, like somebody like Daniel Jones, for example, to pick on my Giants. The Giants have a pretty porous offensive line, or have had the last 3 years. We'll see if it's better this year or not. They've added some weapons, and Saquon Barkley is back, but it doesn't matter if Daniel Jones doesn't have any time to throw the ball. And so that becomes important. That limits his effectiveness. And so I look at injuries, and I look a lot at the matchups on more the borderline. Your studs are going to play. Ideally, if you drafted smart, your top 4 to 5 players that you drafted are going to play week in and week out. Except if they have a bye week, obviously. But from there on, if you're deciding between a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 or a flex position, I look at depth chart, I look at matchup, and I look at the trends of the offense that they're playing for.
And
Ross,
the other thing you got to look out for, like this week, that we know there's no games this week. Okay, there's no football this weekend. It all starts next Thursday. We're excited. Everyone's excited about all these games starting up. It's going to be a great first game, Dallas against Tampa Bay. Like, a lot of cuts are happening, or players, you hear players who are starting, who are not starting. So for example, in Detroit, Perryman, who's like one of the guys supposed to be running wide receiver 1, he was cut. He was cut from the team. So
I'm not surprised. He was a guy who I thought was being listed like out of respect for a veteran over these other guys. There's a lot of hierarchy.
They have Brown. They have St. Brown. They have Williams. The Detroit has a lot of good young receivers. So you got to figure out what receiver is going to be playing, and it could be Williams. It could be the rookie from USC, St. Brown.
Ross, I don't mean to disagree with you, but I would try to avoid the Detroit Detroit wide receiver stable entirely until at least 3 or 4 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks into the season, because you don't know who Jared Goff's favorite target is going to be because of the way the preseason went. But it's a new quarterback. It's 3 new receivers. Like, I look at that, even though, what is it? Amon-Ra St. Brown is his brother Equinemius was just cut. So maybe he'll be signing too. They can have all the Greek gods, but I'm going to avoid that entirely until I know better.
The thing is this: if you have a big roster and if you avoid it, you're not going to get these guys. They're going to be.
I'm not saying I wouldn't have them on my roster, but I wouldn't consider starting them. Jamal Williams is the only guy I'm starting week 1 in Detroit if I have him. I mean,
the Lions are an awful team. They're not going to be winning many games at halftime. So that being said, they're going to be airing the ball out. They're not going to be like running the ball down people's throats. They won't have time for that. Swift's not going to have time to run the ball down people's throats. They're going to be behind. Their defense is not very good. So they're going to be forced to throw the ball. Yep. And I think it's between a couple of receivers. If you have a deep enough roster, you can pick these guys up now. because trust me, if these guys have a 100-yard game, they're going to be picked up very quick in all these leagues.
Well,
That-
Sure. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying I wouldn't start them week in and week out or,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
the
Oh,
first
not at
couple
all.
weeks.
No. These are guys you start during bye weeks. These
No,
guys you keep
well,
on your
Casey's
bench.
right. Casey's making the distinction. Do we start them?
Oh no,
That's
of
different
course
than
not.
drafting.
Yes.
But listen, I think here's another thing that I think about at this point in the season. Though I do a little fact check here. Amon Ra is an Egyptian god. I just need.
Oh,
to say.
I apologize.
That's okay.
correct.
I'm
I
defending.
like
the
how you know
Egyptians.
that. That's impressive.
All right. So the thing is, I do think it's not a bad idea to take a dart throw, not as somebody you start, but because value could creep up very quickly. At this stage of the season, you've got a lot of races that you're not sure how they're going to end up. And then it goes straight into the regular season. It's not done in the preseason. We do have to see, how does Jared Goff play with these players? How does Matthew Stafford play with his guys in LA? You don't know. A quarterback can get locked onto a particular target. They can have a great year. So what I think about at the beginning of the year, even though I'm still learning quite a bit about fantasy football, much better than I was last year, I've learned pay attention at the beginning to see the trends and try to jump on them early, try to get ahead of them. So having a Lions player, a Lions wide receiver, not a bad idea. The other thing that I'm thinking about is rookie wide receivers. They're going to start slow. They almost always do. But my question to you guys, and we'll finish up on this, what rookie wide receiver do you think is going to have the most productive second half? I don't care that much about what happens in the first half, because these are guys that I'm not going to start. I'm not going to have Devontae Smith in my starting lineup in all likelihood until week 5. Then he might start turning a corner. Who do you guys like at the rookie wide receiver position?
Ross, I'll let you go first so you can take your
I'll
boy.
go first. I'm not taking who you think I'm taking. I'm taking Jalen Waddle, the rookie from Alabama. He was hurt last year. He didn't play much. I mean, he didn't really get to see his skill set. But the year before you did, Waddle is unbelievable. I think as soon as he gets his timing down with tail, I think he'll be a weapon to be reckoned with. He'll be their number one receiver. He's a lot better than Parker. I think Waddle, for me, is going to be. He can even be all pro this year. This kid is that good. I don't know if they're going to let him return punts. If they do, he's unbelievable. He's very special doing that too. But Waddle is the guy that is the receiver. One of the rookie receivers that I like a lot.
Well, I'm
Okay.
glad to hear it. I drafted him in a keeper league. Go ahead.
Obviously, I thought you were going to take Jamar Chase, and I'm not going to take Jamar Chase either.
I'm not.
actually
I watched the Bengal. The Bengal game was on national TV Sunday, and I was at home. They were playing Miami. It's funny you say that. And I watched him drop like 3 passes in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, he dropped like all these dropping passes like they're nothing. So I'm
well,
not.
there's
taking
another
this kid.
problem, which is he's got 2 really, really good receivers.
Yeah,
with
he's
him
Boyd
already.
and Higgins.
Yeah, I'm gonna go even a little bit of more of a dark horse, and that's
Great.
we talked about Zach Wilson earlier today, and Dan and I are certainly fans of him, and think I'm going to take Elijah Moore, the rookie wide receiver
Love it.
for the Jets. I think you'll see that classic kind of Justin Jefferson sort of, I guess, progress in the. I mean, Justin Jefferson, the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, nobody really played him or knew about him, and then from like week 5 or 6 on, he was arguably one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. I think Elijah Moore is that same kind of receiver, and with Corey Davis on the opposite side, I think Elijah Moore could have the same sort of impact. The Jets are going to be throwing the ball a lot, so and Zach Wilson is going to want to develop chemistry with somebody like that. I think it could be really special.
By the way, these kind of players, they get cut in the beginning of the season a lot because they don't perform well. You should be there to scoop them up. If you see these really high-end wide receivers getting cut because they're rookies, they're gonna do better as the year goes forward. It happens all the time. I'll give you a dark horse also. I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but Terrace Marshall of the Carolina Panthers.
People talk about him. I hear
He's
his
been
name
doing
all the time.
amazingly in preseason. Now, obviously, it's preseason,
Unbelievable.
but I think Sam Darnold is going to do pretty well in Carolina now that he's out of New York, and I think that Terrace Marshall, by the end of this year, he's going to be regarded as a wide receiver 1.
Cool.
I'm not. That's
I
a
like
great
it. I'll
one.
write that one down.
I also like another dark horse. He's not a rookie though, but we're talking about wide receivers. And if you need somebody and he's available on waivers, I like Mooney from Chicago too. He's not a rookie.
Darnell Mooney. Yeah,
Darnell
he's
Mooney,
getting a
but
lot of
I'm just
hype this
talking
preseason.
about if you're watching this and you're kind of light on wide receivers, and if Mooney's available, he's probably not, but to say some crazy thing he is, he's somebody I think is going to have a huge year.
Am I correct that he's on IR for a game or two?
I didn't see that.
I didn't see it. I don't know.
Okay, we need to check that. So fact
We'll
check.
check it. Well, of course, check that
don't
stuff.
take
Before
my
you
word
pick
for
him
it.
up, make sure you check that.
But I will say this, and we'll finish up on this. Use your IR spots too. There's going to be guys who are out, and you want to scoop them up and put them in those spots. It's an extra roster spot for you. So these are the kinds of things to think about. Guys, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Next time we talk, it's going to be on this show. It's going to be day one of NFL 2021. I'm extremely excited to see how things go and just getting really amped up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will get back to you personally.
Oh, look, coming down the runway is Kill Cliff, the clean energy drink. It's in a brand new can. Oh, look how the colors pop. Boom, boom. Oh, beautiful tan, the front, the back. Gorgeous. Oh, and the flavor, it's still the same awesome taste. I want it in my mouth right now. Oh, so sexy. Go to killcliff.com. Oh,